Hey guys, welcome back to the Desert Shield Sniper, and today I want to talk about value and what value means when it comes to our collection. But before I start, a package arrived today, and I just want to open this with you all, and let's see what I've got. So for those that have been watching my videos, I recently bought two cards from the Propstein auction that I mentioned in my last video. And while I've noticed that the starting bids for that auction were quite high, there were some buyers actually. The Ricky Henderson PSA 10 actually sold for $3,000. So you know what? The strategy, whether it's from Propstein or the client, I think it's working. So maybe these cards are appreciating really fast, or maybe that it was lagging all this time. Well, this is a very tight box. Sorry for the delay, but I also want to avoid cutting my fingers. Usually they just snap out really quickly. Okay. Wow. Okay, finally. So, yeah. So these two cards that I've received today is great for today's topic. Because, as I mentioned, the starting bids for these cards were not low at all. But I decided to buy it anyways because I really needed them. And let's have a look at the cards first before I talk about why, and also we can talk about today's topic about value. Okay, so the first one here is the checklist number 6. Okay, for those that have been following me on IG or on YouTube, you know that I've been looking for this card for quite some time. Why is that? Because I already have a checklist number 6. Now, this is a PSA 10, but unfortunately, there are like these weird spots. There's one there, and there's one right here. And after asking a few collectors, they think that these spots were actually from the press or the print, whatever you call it. But basically, it's probably like some kind of oil stain. And and I find that these spots are very common with the shield cards. So if you have them, it's actually, it may be from the actual manufacturing process. So I finally found a 6 to replace the 6 with. Yeah, I know it's kind of anal, but that's what us collectors do, right? We chase for the best copy that we can find. So this copy here, let's have a look. That looks good. No staining. Centering's pretty decent. Centering for both is pretty decent, but now I have a copy without stain. So sure, this wasn't cheap by any standard, but I think it was reasonable considering that there's not a lot of these around. So I'll be sure to add this card into a pack safe. PSA pack safe, which is one of these cases which I've mentioned before. They're really, really good. I like these because they're low profile, they're strong and sturdy, and they just look good with their PSA cards. They also make some for Beckett slabs as well. So check them out if you're interested in these clear acrylic protectors for your slabs. And as I mentioned before, it's very important to protect the checklists because PSA don't grade these anymore. And so if by any chance you damage these slabs, guess what? They won't grade them and you've lost that PSA 10. So it's important to protect these slabs. Now on with my second card. And this is a card I've been chasing for 2 years. and this is the Jim Abbott. Okay, let's have a look here. Oh, for a second, it scared me here. I thought there was a crack. It was just a piece of lint or something. So, first of all, Jim Abbott. I mean, this guy, he was spectacular. Okay, I really think that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I know why it's kind of, and I think a lot of people will agree with that, but to a point that it's also not fair that he gets admitted because of the fact that he was handicapped. But we also appreciate him for that because it takes, I think, at least 10 times as hard for someone with only one hand to pitch the way he did. And I remember as a kid, we would always like put our gloves like Abbott did when he was playing, and it wasn't to mock him; it was admiration. He was just such a great player, and I do hope that one day he gets into the Hall of Fame. But at the moment, he's not. So that's also the reason why, at the moment, this card isn't that expensive. But I've been looking for like a PSA 9 at least for the last 2 years and haven't been able to run into one. And so this popped up in the Propstein auction. I was just fingers crossed no one would buy it. First of all, the high. This is the benefit of having a starting bid that's pretty high. You won't have a lot of attention on the card. So this, I thank Rick for that. But yeah, I ended up being the only bidder. So I guess that probably means that I slightly overpaid. But which leads me to talk about today's topic, and which is value. Okay, so let's talk about as an example. Let's talk about the checklist, right? I think a lot of people will kind of debate about whether or not the checklists are worth the money that it's selling for today. Okay, some are. I don't remember which checklist, but some are listed at like 850, 600 easily. And the reason why people don't value these cards is because there's no way to identify whether or not the checklists are counterfeit or authentic. So, but to me, the reason why I think that there's going to be a lot of value in these checklists is because if you're a graded card collector for a digital set, your set will never be completed unless you have these graded checklists. So whether it's a PSA 9 or 8, I haven't seen a lot of low grades for these, but it's usually in the higher grades, so 8, 9s, and 10s. But especially if you're looking for like a PSA 10 set, which there's a few in the registry, you won't be able to complete that run unless you have these 6 cards. So, and the fact that they stopped grading these checklists in the early, I believe it was like early 2000s or the late 90s, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Just let me know in the comment section. But there's not a lot of these out there. And if you even check that in, there's, the number of cards in the pop count in the PSA website is not really consistent too, because some may list a certain card to have 20 and then some will say only 2 or 3. So I don't really even know how many cards are out there. But the thing is, though, as long as PSA will guarantee or continue to verify that these slabs are authentic, then I think there's value in these cards. Okay. So, but apart from these checklists, which is a very unique case, I think, unique in the fact that I think there's a certain element of um, organic scarcity with these cards, because the fact that the reason why it's so scarce is because of the fact that they've identified there's no way to verify its authenticity. And so the number of these slabs are not the cards, but slabs are very low. Okay, so the value is actually more into the slabs and the label rather than the card itself. So that's at least that's how, in my opinion. Okay, and feel free to object. So the other thing is, let's talk about the Abbott in this case. So first of all, there's not a lot of PSA 10 Abbotts. There's, I think, right now in the registry, there's like what, 21. Um, First of all, I do think that Jim Abbott as a player deserves more credit than he has. Um, and secondly, I just feel that this is one of those cards that doesn't pop up on eBay that much. Okay, and I say eBay because obviously you'll probably find more Desert Shield cards on Fanatics or Golden or whatever. But considering that most people buy from eBay, especially in the global market, let's just use eBay. So I do think that although I may have overpaid for this card slightly, but honestly, I don't care because I'm a collector, and you know, I'm not all about making a profit or the value of the cards in terms of other people's eyes. To me, this card is a card that I've been waiting for 2 years. It looks great. The centering is really good. Corner's really sharp. The registration looks good. And honestly, if a PSA 10 of a common player now goes for like $100, let's say, in fair value, I don't see why this card isn't worth $350. Okay, it's a player that to this day that many people still remember due to his handicap status, and also the fact that he pitched a no hitter at one time.
Indians have not had a man past first base. Baerga batting .318. And the ground ball to short. Velarde. He did it. He did it. No hitter for Jim Abbott. Jim Abbott throws a no hitter and shuts out the Cleveland Indians 4-0. Mobbed by his teammates.
So, this is a player that will be remembered for decades, I think, at least for baseball fans. And so, sure, I may have overpaid slightly in terms of current comps, but that's the thing, though. What's current comps? Because right now you can see certain cards that are paid like 2-3 times of the last comp, and then the next transaction after that, it may just drop back to the previous comp price. So I think the thing is, you really need to consider how that card is valuated to yourself. Okay. As a collector, I think that when a card has really spectacular eye appeal, and I've spoken about this many, many times, it doesn't matter if it's a PSA 9, 8, or even a 7. I bought 7s in the past, right? That card has, or at least in an appropriate price, you will value that card. And that card is worth acquiring. Okay. I say this because a lot of people, I think right now in the hobby, put too much emphasis on what people evaluate on your collection. But I just want to use an example, right? So, like my dad, he doesn't collect. And if I showed him my 53 Topps Mickey Mantle, which is worth a few dollars, he'd just probably toss it on a table and say, cool. And, meanwhile, every collector would handle that card with extreme care because of how much it's worth. But to him, it's just a card that makes me happy. And I think that's the only value he sees in it. He sees that for his son, that these cards give him a good time and he enjoys collecting cards, but not how much it can sell for and what people are willing to pay for it. And I think that's, if you're collecting these cards as a collector, and I think most people that collect Desert Shield cards are collectors and not necessarily flippers, then I think that's really how you should look at the valuation of the set and or cards individually. And although obviously collectors will always find the value of particular cards or the set very important, because obviously one thing that does encourage people to spend more in the hobby is the fact that these things do appreciate. I do think that we should look less at investing in the cards, but rather to collect the cards that, that can keep value. I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me, that's my mentality when it comes to looking at the value of the cards and how I acquire these cards. Um, because honestly, if it's simply just for investment, you should be just doing other types of investments like trading stocks or, well, maybe not at this time. You may not want to buy a home, but other types of investment that is known to um, attract a broader market, right? Not saying that baseball cards aren't broad, because they're very popular now. Like, just look at how all these different auction houses are going to places like Japan and China, because I think that this hobby, not just these cards, are spreading across the world, and I'm really happy for that, because I'm hoping sports like baseball, which is a sport that has always been popular in North America and, well, in Japan as well, but can spread to other parts of the world where it's a sharing of culture, basically. But back to evaluating our cards. So today, I mean, I spent a few $100s on this Sabbath and a few $100s on this checklist. And I think to some collectors, they'll say, "Wow, you paid a lot more than it's worth." But I think for that collector that was looking for this checklist number 6 to complete their PSA 10 run, they may feel that I got a steal. And for a Jim Abbott collector that's missing this Desert Shield PSA 10, they'd probably think I got a steal and that they missed out on it. So, sure, I mean, at the end of the day, the actual monetary value of the cards depends on the broader market and how they feel about that card and the demand for that card. But at the end, your collection is a one-on-one thing. It's between you and the collection. And so I think if you love and cherish that card, then that demand is there. And although I'm not telling anyone to chase a card at no matter what nominal value, I do think that sometimes the price of the card should be placed behind, the condition of the card, how that card is, how necessary that card is for your collection, and how much you like that player. So, I just wanted to talk about this today because I think recent years, card prices have gone really crazy. And I've seen, and I've made these mistakes myself. Like, I've always talked about how I bought a John Morant rookie a couple of years back. And it was like during that time that the prices had already slumped, and I thought I was picking it up at a good time. But then, things happened with Jaw, and it continues to drop. And there's a sort of I wouldn't say a regret, but obviously when your card's down like 70%, you think like I should have waited, or it's not a good feeling. But the thing is, that's because I'm not a John Morant fan, or that I mean I have appreciation for his skills, but I'm not a fan. I can't say I am. But the thing is, and as another example, like I also collect Mickey Mantles, apart from these Legend Shield cards, if that mantle drops for some reason, in price I'm talking about, I wouldn't really care. And I think that that's how I want to aim my collection from this point onwards. And actually, I've been doing so in the last 2 years. And it's the fact that I don't really care whether or not the price is going to go up or down. And obviously, I do want to avoid when buying a certain card when it's peaked a lot, right? Because you know that there has, like stocks, it might have like slightly been overbought, and that price may be just a bit too high. But regardless, though, I want to buy into cards where, like, let's just say in 2 years' time, there's some sort of a tiny crash, and the value of these cards drop like 50%. But I still cherish these cards and love these cards like crazy. And that's the type of collection that will bring me the greatest value in my lifetime. And I just want to share this with everyone because, there's a lot of videos online where people talk about, they bought like certain cards, like especially basketball cards during the peak, and they've dropped like some even like crazy, like 95% from the highest value. And, and a lot of people are bummed out about it. And I would be, right? Like, but the thing is, I would be if I was an investor, but not if I was a collector, and not if I was a fan of a particular player, right? So I think as long as you continue to look at the hobby this way, the hobby will always be healthy for yourself at least. And you'll always enjoy buying cards because you're buying something that you love and it's not just looked at by its monetary value. So that's all I want to talk about today. And thank you for listening. If you like this video, please like and subscribe because that's what keeps me going. And I'll see you guys another time. Bye now.